This guy said, today, this was October 7th, today a socialist mayor in Germany was stabbed and is now fighting for her life. The media chorus was instant. Nazis are back, hate is rising, democracy under attack. We're all used to this. Then reality arrived. Her 15-year-old adopted black son was taken away in handcuffs. Earlier this year, police were called to the same address when her 17-year-old adopted daughter threatened her with a knife, according to Die Welt. This isn't a story about right-wing violence, it's a story about a society so obsessed with its own moral performance that it can't even see the blade coming from within its own narrative. According to Martin Sellner, the mayor is now awake and can speak, but refuses to tell the police who the perpetrator is. And this one says, Iris Stalzer, newly elected mayor with her upper body torn apart by stab wounds, flown to a clinic by rescue helicopter, remains in life-threatening condition. She has 2 non-European adoptive children, 15 and 17 years old. 17-year-old daughter has already been, this is Google, Grok translated, so I mean, I guess arrested. It's some conspicuous for the knife incidents. The children apparently lied about the course of events. The son was arrested. Neighbors report loud arguments between the mother and 15-year-old son shortly before the act. Police do not comment on whether the children are witnesses or suspects. Stalzer is conscious again, knows who the perpetrator was, but does not want to say it. Merz demanded full clarification immediately after the act. I demand that too. Why hasn't he posted more about it? According to the mainstream media, the mayor has now told the police that the adoptive daughter was responsible for the stabbing. The 15-year-old adoptive son tried to protect her by claiming it was several men just outside the home responsible. And so I brought up some articles because I wanted more information than just a tweet thread. It says, chilling new details revealed after mayor is allegedly stabbed and seriously wounded by her teenage daughter. Mayor-elect Iris Stalzer was left fighting for her life after being stabbed on Tuesday, October 7th. New details have emerged after it was reported that the newly elected mayor of a Western German town had allegedly been stabbed by her teenage daughter. Iris Stalzer, 57, was found stabbed in her home shortly after noon local time on Tuesday, October 7th. Her 17-year-old daughter had called an emergency number and told a dispatcher that her mother was stabbed outside in an alleged armed robbery, according to the Associated Press, Reuters, and the New York Times. However, Stalzer, who had recently been elected as the new mayor of Herdecke, I can't pronounce German names, I'm sorry, located in Western Germany, roughly 10 miles south of Dortmund, late last month, had since told police during an interview at the hospital that her daughter was the person who stabbed her, per AP. Police had discovered the injured victim sitting in a chair after officers responded to the family's home. That's right, even before it was known that it was the daughter, attempts were made to blame the only right-wing opposition. Interesting. To give her credit, the mayor put her money where her mouth is. Unfortunately, it ended like we predicted it would. Hope she makes it. Yeah? I'd like to know why she was stabbed. Not hearing any mention of a father in this story. Interesting. I also think it's interesting that they hold up like a little tarp to protect the body from being seen. We don't do that in the US. That's interesting. Doctors allegedly found 13, holy fuck, 13 stab wounds to Stalzer's upper body, German outlet Bild reported, citing new police findings. There were also several hematomas and fractures on the victim's skull, the paper stated. Bro, I don't care who stabbed me this many times and also fractured my skull. I don't care if it would be like a mom, an aunt, an uncle, a child. If someone did this to me, I would be singing their name as soon as I was able to. The fact that she originally did not want to say who it was is wild to me. 13 means the stabbing was meant to kill you. What is going on? Damn, she got fucked up. Yeah, right? People don't realize the human body can take a lot of damage. It could also give out from very little damage. The body is weird. Stalzer reportedly told police that she was tormented for hours by her daughter in the basement of her home, per Bild. The outlet noted that the victim had been stabbed with 2 knives, adding that attempts had been made to remove blood-stained evidence from the scene, according to authorities. So she was tormented for hours, had her skull fractured, was stabbed 13 times. They tried to remove blood-stained evidence. The son lied to the police about random men outside having committed the attack. Why are they getting deported? Why not deport them? Per German paper Die Zeit, the daughter was then handed over to the Youth Welfare Office. The fact that she called emergency services herself means the act may be classified as grievous bodily harm and not as attempted homicide, according to local outlets including Die Zeit and Bild. She called emergency services herself, but then they lied about who did it. That does what? German outlet Focus also noted that the conflict in the basement between the mother and daughter allegedly lasted for an extended period of time. A heated argument was thought to have broken out between the pair, which then escalated, the outlet reported, citing security sources. The suspect is believed to have tried to set fire to her mother's hair with deodorant spray, per the publication. A knife and bloody clothes were then allegedly found in a backpack belonging to Staltzer's 15-year-old son, Focus reported, while Bild noted that the clothing is believed to have belonged to the politician's daughter. Staltzer, a member of the Social Democratic Party, had been set to take office on November 1st, according to AP. She was reported to be in critical condition on Tuesday night, but local authorities have since said she is out of danger, according to the news agency. We've been saying until the boot is on their neck, but you're beginning to think they won't even learn then? Yeah? Yeah, I'd like to see, like, the mayor initially didn't want to say that it was her daughter who did it, but then eventually released that it was her daughter. So I'm wondering if she's finally realizing, hey, maybe these people can't live in my home. Maybe it's time to deport. After the news of the attack made headlines, politicians across Germany swiftly condemned the incident. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz wrote on X that he hopes for her complete recovery, according to a translation of a post made Wednesday. My thoughts are with her family and her relatives, the Chancellor wrote. People has contacted the local public prosecutor's office and local police regarding the updates in the case, but didn't immediately hear back. I know this is just like the boilerplate statement for people to say when something bad happens, right? So like nothing inherently bad about this, but personally, I find it a little funny that she got stabbed by her adoptive daughter and this guy's like, my thoughts are with her family. I just think that's a little funny, okay? Like... This other article I brought up, a German mayor recovering names daughter as knife attacker. Iris Stalzer, mayor-elect of the West German town of Herdecke, has told investigators it was her adoptive daughter who stabbed her repeatedly in her home this week. Police said Stalzer's life was no longer in danger, which is great. That's great that she's actually going to recover, because holy fuck, 13 fucking times and a fractured skull, brother. What the hell? The mayor-elect of the Ruhr Valley town of Herdecke, Iris Stalzer, is out of life-threatening danger and has named her adopted daughter as her attacker. The 57-year-old local politician was airlifted to hospital around lunchtime on Tuesday after being found in her home with multiple stab wounds. Police say that Stalzer had been able to answer questions late on Tuesday from her hospital bed. Investigators said little about the possible motive or reason for the family argument. I would love to know what was happening, but I doubt we will ever know. Noting that it involved two minors and that the case had only garnered so much attention because of Stalzer's position in local politics and the possibility of a political motive to the attack. But they did explain to reporters more about their investigation and evidence finding on Tuesday. That's crazy. That's actually funny that they're like, they wanted this so badly to be some sort of political attack from the right that now I'm betting that she was like, oh, it's my adopted foreign daughter. It's going to be swept under the rug. That's what happens in the US. That's what happens here. It just kind of goes out of the media cycle afterwards, you know? They did explain to reporters more about their investigation and evidence finding on Tuesday. Stalzer was found seated in a chair in the living room after the emergency call. Police soon found, while searching the entire premises, signs of a struggle in the cellar, along with Stalzer's discarded clothes she was wearing at the time, and two knives thought to be weapons used to attack her. So, in the other article, it said that they found clothes, and the clothes had blood on them, and the clothes also belonged to the daughter. So does that mean that there was a set of clothes from the daughter and a set of clothes from the mayor? If true, that means that the daughter and son had been involved in this attack. The son was covering for the daughter. The daughter stabbed the mother 13 times and also fractured her skull, and then stripped her and put new clothes on her. A homicide commission was set up in Hagen on Tuesday to investigate the case. Senior public prosecutor Bernd Haldorn told reporters on Wednesday that according to the prosecution's current information, the case is likely to be treated as the German equivalent of aggravated assault or grievous bodily harm. Haldorn said that the conditions for the pretrial detention of the 17-year-old daughter had not been met. These include if a person is considered to be a flight risk and the possibility of repeating the offense. She stabbed her mother 13 times. Like, I get it's an adoptive mother, but 13 times. If there is a case for someone to be held in detention, it is literally this. Letting people like this out on the street is what gets people like Irina Zarutska fucking murdered. What is happening? He added the fact that the daughter made the emergency call along with her 15-year-old brother spoke against pursuing charges of attempted murder. They called so they could lie. We literally just read that the son had tried blaming it on two random men. What the fuck? The prosecutor expected police to release her as they had the 15-year-old adoptive son. The children are being transferred to youth services for the time being, Haldorn said. Stalzer had only recently been elected mayor in the runoff election on September 28th. She won with 52.2% of the votes against the center-right Christian Democrat candidate Fabian Konrad Haas. The CDU had previously held the mayoral race in Herdecke for a long time. Prior to the attack, her inauguration ceremony had been planned for November 4th, according to the authorities. German mayor-elect alleges adopted teenage daughter stabbed and tortured her. A newly elected mayor in Germany, who was critically injured after a stabbing on Tuesday, has alleged she was tortured for hours by her adopted teenage daughter. German media reported on Friday. The victim, 57-year-old Iris Stalzer, had recently been elected mayor for the left-leaning Social Democrat Party with support from the Green Party and was due to take office in November. She was attacked in her home in the town of Herdecke in western Germany. Investigators said on Wednesday, Stalzer was found at her home with stab wounds, apparently having been attacked by her teenage daughter. Torture in basement is alleged. More details of the attack have since emerged in the German media. The newspaper Bild said doctors later found the politician suffered 13 stab wounds, several hematomas, and skull fractures. Stalzer described being tortured for hours in her basement by her 17-year-old adopted daughter, who allegedly used a deodorant spray and a lighter to try and set her on fire before stabbing her repeatedly. Public broadcaster WDR reported that Stalzer managed to drag herself back inside the house after the attack. The teenager reportedly told her adoptive mother she wanted revenge, though her motive remains unclear. Investigators later found a knife believed to have been used in the attack inside a backpack belonging to Stalzer's 15-year-old adopted son, along with blood-stained clothing thought to belong to the daughter. Forensic experts also discovered that significant traces of blood in the home appeared to have been cleaned up before the emergency services were called. The police are using the fact that the daughter who stabbed the adoptive daughter who stabbed the mother called emergency services as a reason to not charge her with attempted murder. They called emergency services, lied about who did it, and also cleaned up the home before calling emergency services. Therefore, they shouldn't be charged with attempted murder. Germany is even more of a joke than our country at this point. This is crazy. Police confirmed that there had been tensions in the household before, including an earlier domestic dispute involving This isn't even the first time! This isn't even the first time! Prosecutors are treating this case as dangerous bodily harm rather than attempted homicide, citing the daughter's decision to call for help afterward as a withdrawal from the crime. She lied about who did it. She cleaned the crime scene. German police are insane. Both adopted children have been placed in the care of the local youth welfare office as the investigation continues. We have a Daily Caller here. German mayor allegedly set on fire, stabbed 13 times by, here we go, African-born adopted daughter. They kept saying that the daughter and son were adopted, but they didn't say exactly from where. You know, now we know. I'm so shocked. A German mayor-elect adopted teenage daughter allegedly tried to set her mother's hair on fire with deodorant spray and a lighter before stabbing her 13 times in the basement. Iris Stalzer, 57, encountered her 17-year-old daughter in the sauna area of their home when she went to use the shower. I want a home sauna. Security sources told Focus Online. A fierce argument erupted. The teenager then allegedly grabbed 2 knives and stabbed her mother 13 times in the upper body, puncturing her lung. A fierce argument erupted. The teenager then allegedly grabbed 2 knives and stabbed her mother 13 times in the upper body, puncturing her lung. The girl then attempted to burn her mother's hair using deodorant spray and a lighter, the sources told the outlet. Stalzer's adopted daughter is from Mali, according to RTL West, a German outlet. So, there's a little bit of a contradiction here, right? So it says that the daughter tried to set her mother's hair on fire before stabbing her 13 times, but then down here, says the teenager allegedly grabbed the knives and stabbed her mother 13 times in the lung. The girl then attempted to burn the hair. I don't know which order the stabbing and the burning is in. They both happened, but I don't know the order. The bleeding politician convinced her daughter to call for help by promising not to reveal who attacked her. And they're using this as a reason to not arrest and charge the daughter. That's fucking wild. That is insane. This isn't justice, this is cockery. The bleeding politician convinced her daughter to call for help by promising not to reveal who attacked her. Stalzer dragged herself upstairs and collapsed in a chair while her daughter called emergency services, according to Focus. The teenager told dispatchers that men had attacked her mother. If this mayor does not press charges, I will not know what to say. I cannot handle another politician feeling more bad for their attacker than for what was committed to themselves. The girl hid a bloody knife and stained clothes in her 15-year-old brother's backpack. She cleaned blood from the floor. Staltzer's son, also adopted, is from Haiti, according to RTL West. Police reportedly quickly suspected the children. They found that... We suspected them, but it's not attempted murder. They found the hidden weapon and bloody items. Staltzer initially refused to name her attacker when questioned at the hospital. Her husband, returning from a trip, convinced her that evening to tell police the truth. Thank you! Thank you! At least this man still has some testosterone left in his body. I know that's a crazy concept for German men in current year, but holy fuck. The daughter felt disadvantaged compared to her adopted brother, leading to frequent family fights. She had threatened her mother with a knife last summer, prompting a police response for domestic violence, the outlet reported. First responders airlifted Staltzer to a nearby hospital by helicopter. She remains in intensive care. Emergency personnel removed her teenage son from the scene in handcuffs, though authorities have not confirmed whether he's a suspect. What do they mean the daughter felt disadvantaged compared to her adopted brother? What the fuck does that even mean? What does that even mean? According to investigators, the SPD mayor of Herdecke, Iris Staltzer, was seriously injured with stab wounds by her adopted daughter. The motive is said to have been a long family dispute. After the bloody tragedy in Germany, more and more details about the course of events are becoming known. As Focus Online reports, citing security circles, 57-year-old SPD Mayor Iris Staltzer met her adopted daughter in the sauna area of her home. Shortly afterwards, the argument escalated. The 17-year-old is said to have stabbed her mother with 2 knives, according to the doctors treating her. 13 stab wounds were found in her upper body, including in her lungs. The teenager then tried to set her mother's hair on fire with a deodorant spray. Okay, well, this article does say that it was the stabbing and then the hair on fire, so I guess that's the correct order. According to the investigators, the situation has calmed down in the meantime. The seriously injured Staltzer is said to have persuaded her daughter to get help, and in return, she promised not to say who had attacked her. Once at the top, the teenager called the fire department and police and said that her mother had been attacked by several men. When the emergency services arrived, the victim was sitting in an armchair covered in blood. Investigators later discovered a blood-stained knife and items of clothing that the teenager had apparently hidden in a rucksack belonging to her 15-year-old adopted brother. Parts of the floor had already been cleaned of traces of blood. The mayor was taken to a clinic by rescue helicopter and was temporarily treated for life-threatening injuries. After initial questioning, she indicated that she knew the perpetrator but did not give his name. Only after consulting her husband did she confirm the attack by her daughter. According to the investigation, there had been conflicts in the family for some time. The girl felt inferior to her adoptive brother and had already threatened her mother with a knife in the summer. At that time, the police had to intervene due to domestic violence. The public prosecutor has since downgraded the charge from attempted manslaughter to grievous bodily harm. Senior public prosecutor Bernd Haldorn explained that this was a normal step because the teenager had called the emergency services and thus withdrawn from the crime. Once again, this is fucking absurd. This is absolutely absurd. According to information from Focus Online, the 17-year-old has since been committed to a psychiatric facility by the Youth Welfare Office. She stabbed her adoptive mother 13 times and then tried to set her on fire. That is not psychiatric facility necessary. That is prison until execution, man. Like, what are we doing here? That's absurd. I'm withdrawing myself from tax liability forever. I wish that worked. Attempts murder. I call take backsies. Oh, okay. Well, you're free to go then. I hate Clown World. This was a game that I talked about previously, and I heavily considered donating to their fundraiser thing because I thought it looked really cute and I would have liked to play it. And I remember, like, Silvervale talking about Puffpals Island Skies pretty frequently. Boy, brother, man, am I so glad I didn't donate anything. Holy shit. Mugen says, Puffpals Island Skies is a game that scammed its backers out of $2.5 million and has its CEO currently on the run. I noticed that the game's domain was for sale, so I bought it and replaced it with this instead. Actually based Mugen. This website uses cookies. No, thank you. Fluffnest closed down its plushie business and is currently being sued to oblivion. Fluffnest scammed you. Here's how. Have you seen this man? David Pentland is currently being sued for over 2.1 million USD for his role in managing to drive Fluffnest Inc. into the depths of hell while scamming his loyal backers and the talented people who worked on Puffpals Island Skies. Wondering how to get a refund? Contact your bank. Fluffnest stopped issuing refunds a long time ago. Your only hope is to do a chargeback. Explain the situation to your bank, and depending on a multitude of factors, you may still be able to get your money back. We have, the stakes are quite large. U.S. Supreme Court case could gut the Voting Rights Act. Court's decision in Louisiana versus Calais could limit voters from challenging racial discriminatory districts. I wonder what they mean by this. I wonder if they mean racially discriminatory, like requiring fucking ID. The U.S. Supreme Court is set to hear a case this month that could gut what remains of the Voting Rights Act, effectively killing one of the crown jewels of the civil rights movement, and the nation's most powerful statute to prevent discrimination in voting. The court's decision in the case, Louisiana versus Calais, could be one of the most consequential rulings for the Voting Rights Act since it was enacted in 1965, and is almost certainly the biggest test for the law since its decision in Shelby County versus Holder in 2013. When the justices hollowed out a provision of the law, Section 5, that required certain places to get voting changes approved by the federal government before they go into effect. I wonder what changes were made. I was busy being like an MMO degenerate in 2013. The Supreme Court is considering the constitutionality of the two most powerful remaining provisions of the Voting Rights Act, Section 2. The measure outlaws election practices that are racially discriminatory and has been the tool that minority voters and voting rights advocates have frequently turned to challenge redistricting plans. From congressional districts to county commissions and school boards, that group voters in such a way to dilute the political influence of a minority group. Getting rid of Section 2 or severely limiting the ways in which it can be applied would effectively kill the Voting Rights Act. It would take away the most powerful tool voters have to challenge racially discriminatory districts. The stakes are potentially quite large, said Sophia Lynn Lakin, the director of the Voting Rights Project at the American Civil Liberties Union. The outcome of the case will not only determine the next steps for Louisiana's congressional map, but may also shape the future of redistricting cases nationwide. District 2, 61% black. That seems a little silly to have like a weird little snaky thing here instead of just making it like everything else. The dispute at the court is focused on a challenge by white voters to a majority black district in Louisiana that stretches from Shreveport to Baton Rouge. The justices already heard oral arguments in that case in March that focused on whether Louisiana Republicans had overly relied on race when they redrew the district in response to a Section 2 lawsuit by black voters. In an unusual move, the court did not reach a decision at the end of the court's term this summer, and instead set the case for re-argument this fall. The justices announced in August they wanted the parties to submit briefing on whether Louisiana's intentional creation of a second majority-minority congressional district violates the 14th or 15th Amendments. I don't like majority-minority. If they are the majority, then de facto they are not a minority. Like, how do you weasel word this hard, man? It feels like I'm reading crazy speech. The 14th Amendment guarantees equal protection of law for all U.S. citizens, and the 15th Amendment prohibits the government from denying someone the right to vote based on their race. I mean, that's cool and all, but gerrymandering the districts doesn't have anything to do with that? Like, you don't have the right to vote as a racial bloc, you just have the right to not be blocked from voting for your race. What is the argument here? The question raised the stakes of the case at the court, giving opponents of the law a chance to argue that the landmark civil rights statute should either be significantly narrowed or struck down entirely. The challengers and the state do not limit themselves to whether conditions in Louisiana continue to justify application of the Voting Rights Act there, said Stuart Nifa, a lawyer with the NAACP Legal Defense and Educational Fund, which is representing voters defending the existing map. They've attempted to expand the question beyond what the court has asked, and they argue that Section 2 is not constitutional at all anywhere. There are many possibilities for how the court could rule. The justices could beat back those arguments and affirm the constitutionality of Section 2. The court could also say once and for all that the provision is unconstitutional, dealing a fatal blow to the Voting Rights Act. It could also rule somewhere in between, leaving Section 2 intact, but make the test to deploy it much harder, in effect neutering it. The two key pillars, at least since 1982, were Section 2 and Section 5, said Richard Hassan, an election law scholar at the University of California, Los Angeles. Shelby County already knocked down one of those pillars, and this case could potentially either knock it down or render it so weak that you might as well say it's been knocked down. He added that weakening but not killing Section 2 might potentially avoid some of the political cost. The case arrives at the court after many of the court's conservative justices have openly expressed skepticism about the continued need for Section 2. The authority to conduct race-based redistricting cannot extend indefinitely into the future, Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote in a 2023 concurring opinion, a remark that was widely seen as an ominous sign for Section 2. Justice Clarence Thomas has long publicly said he thinks the statute is unconstitutional when it comes to redistricting. Congress amended Section 2 in 1982 to clarify that it outlawed practices that resulted in discriminations. One did not need to prove intent. Working as an attorney in the Justice Department, John Roberts advocated strongly against those amendments. This is what's going to make it interesting, right? Because it was like a collective wakening up and realizing, oh hey, white people are actually still people and you can't discriminate against them. And so we're seeing a lot of discrimination cases brought by white people because of all of these racial policies that have been going on since like the 50s and 60s. The consequences of gutting Section 2 would be drastic, Lakin and other attorneys representing black voters defending Louisiana's current map wrote in a brief to the justices. Without Section 2, jurisdictions could simply eliminate minority opportunity districts, even where they remain necessary for voters of color to have any opportunity to elect candidates of choice, wiping out minority representation and resegregating legislatures, city councils, and school boards, as some have recently attempted to do. Eliminate minority opportunity districts. Well, yes, they should be eliminated. There shouldn't be an opportunity district for someone based on the color of their skin. It should be an American opportunity for Americans. What am I reading here? Battleizer, thank you. Section 2 can guarantee that people of color could be elected even if they are, say, 10% of the state population. If gerrymandered to make that 10% a voting block, it would guarantee a rep of a certain skin color. Yeah, that's really fucking strange. Especially that it's been going on since the 1960s. How has nothing been done about it up until this point? Why are we giving people more rights on their skin colors? That's a great question. I mean, it's the same with affirmative action. How is that in place for so goddamn long? Districts based in obvious majority-minority communities like Harlem or Tuskegee could be divided along obvious racial lines without consequence. Louisiana legislators reportedly have been asked to hold dates for a possible special session on redistricting after the oral argument this fall. Dividing places on obvious racial lines is what this thing you're defending does. What are they even saying? The case before the court on the 15th of October involves a long and twisted saga over Louisiana's congressional map, which Linda Greenhouse, who covered the Supreme Court for decades for the New York Times, called, without a doubt, the most complicated voting rights case I've ever encountered. After the 2020 census, the state drew a congressional map that had only one majority black district out of 6, even though black voters make up about a third of eligible voters in the state. Black voters sued the state under the Voting Rights Act. 2 courts agreed with their claims, and the state eventually drew a new map that created a second majority-minority district. Wanting to protect powerful incumbents in the state, including the House Speaker Mike Johnson and Representative Julia Letlow, while also being majority black, the new district has an extremely odd shape. But after the new maps went into effect, a group of white voters sued in a different court, arguing the new district improperly sorted voters based on their race, which is true. A court agreed with that argument in 2024, but the U.S. Supreme Court allowed the redrawn map to go into effect for last fall's election. Cleo Fields, a black Democrat, won the district by more than 13 points. That's wild that they voted. Or rather, not voted, the court agreed that it was not correct to do that, but they still let it go into effect for the election. His win was a big deal for people like Martha Davis, who worked as both a teacher and administrator for 40 years. She still remembers waiting in segregated waiting rooms as a young girl and going to a segregated Catholic school where she got used books from the white Catholic school. Now she lives in North Baton Rouge. It's like the wrong side of the track. It's like the forgotten area, said Davis, who is one of the black voters who sued Louisiana over its original map. There are no hospitals nearby, no grocery stores nearby, the streets are deplorable. Nobody could care less what happens in that part of town. When someone says this, I now think about the 2020 Summer of Love or the other riots that happened across the country, stuff in like Portland, right? And I think about how all of the stores that get looted or burned down, the big box stores just say, we're not going to open up again. Target opened up again and they got repeatedly burglarized. I think about all of the small businesses that can't afford to rebuild. They lost their entire livelihood. And I'm just like, well, I don't know. I'm gonna need some more information when I hear people say this now. Baton Rouge resident here, she's 100% correct. There's a road called Florida Boulevard. Anything north of that road is in shambles and crime-ridden. Anything south is a decent place to live. I don't live there, so I don't know why that part is in shambles and crime-ridden. But if it's crime-ridden, it makes sense that businesses don't want to move in there. The fact that we were able to choose somebody that looks like me, somebody who knows what our needs are and fights for us, that made me overjoyed, she said. Field's win also made a difference to Devontae Lewis, a member of the Louisiana Public Service Commission, who represents the Baton Rouge area. He said that since Field's election last year, it had been easier to get help on federal issues like disaster relief. When we need help for certain areas, you want your member of Congress to know it, who was also one of the plaintiffs in the original suit challenging Louisiana's map. You don't want them to be 170 miles away who have no connection to where you are. And I mean, I can respect that. You definitely don't want a representative that has nothing to do with your local area. But that's why, shouldn't the maps be, like, not encompassing a massive place? And when you look at some of these, like, salamanders, how do you justify that as an excuse when it stretches from New Orleans to Shreveport, man? Like, what do the people in Shreveport have to do with people in New Orleans or Baton Rouge? Like, it's so far apart, dude. Your entire argument falls apart when we see what the redistricting looks like. When the case was before the Supreme Court in March, Louisiana defended its redrawn map, saying it had made a good faith effort to comply with the Constitution and the Voting Rights Act after judges had blocked their original plan. But after the judges invited further briefing, the state switched its position and now says that its map is unconstitutional. There isn't the kind of ongoing discrimination that would justify bringing racial considerations into redistricting, the state's lawyers say. They argue that the Supreme Court has only recognized two contexts which it is acceptable for the government to take race-based action, remedying specific past instances of discrimination and avoiding imminent safety risks in prisons, like preventing a race riot. Those two interests share a critical feature that Section 2 lacks. They turn on a specific harm and permit only a correspondingly narrow, temporary remedy. They wrote in their own brief to the court, race-based redistricting pursuant to Section 2, by contrast, is nothing of the sort. It presents no imminent danger to human safety. It's in its heartland application today. It also has nothing to do with remedying past intentional discrimination, let alone specific identified instances of intentional discrimination. I very much disagree. Considering how many people want reparations and blame a lot on people currently alive that had nothing to do with what their possible ancestors did, I very much don't believe this. The U.S. Supreme Court has allowed map makers to use race in drawing districts if it is in service of a compelling interest, and its use is narrowly tailored to that interest. Writing for the court in a 2017 case, Justice Alina Kagan noted that the justices had long assumed that complying with the Voting Rights Act was a compelling interest. Those defending the maps argue that the Supreme Court precedent already requires them to clear a series of high hurdles to show that race-conscious redistricting is needed in a Section 2 case. I really don't think any of these crazy Marxist ideologues want to usher in an era of race consciousness. I think that would be very bad for absolutely everyone. And I really think reconsiderations are necessary here. It is difficult to win a Section 2 case. From 2012 to 2021, there were 48 Section 2 cases dealing with vote dilution filed, and just 21 of them were successful, according to data collected by the Voting Rights Institute at the University of Michigan. Clearing those hurdles, those defending Louisiana's map say, requires them to show that there is ongoing discrimination. Section 2's permanent nature does not mean that its application is without limitation. Congress ensured that Section 2's results test is appropriately constrained and requires a remedy only where race is already shaping political decision-making. In what way should race be shaping political decision-making? Where voting is starkly racially polarized, leading to a pattern of persistent and ongoing electoral losses for candidates preferred by a cohesive minority voting bloc, as is true in Louisiana. Those current conditions may give rise to the need for a race-conscious remedy for unlawful racial vote dilution. I think this is where, like, a huge problem comes from, right? Like, I don't trust politicians, and I don't think any of the politicians in our country, for the most part, really work for the American people. I like a lot of the things Trump has done so far. There are things that I wish he would do better, and there are things that I wish he would do that he has decided maybe won't happen, right? Like, I'm not a huge truster of politicians, but If I'm an American, I have to believe that my politician will want to work in the best interest of the American people. You can't have a politician working in the best interest of a specific racial bloc, because you will end up with racial discrimination. The needs of one race should be the needs of all of the races in a unified America. So, like, reading this shit is just wild for me to read. Like, it's insane. They're just like, we should be allowed under fucking Voting Rights Act to be discriminatory and racist. Like, what? Crowder recently did a bit in a black-owned barbershop trying to convey, hey guys, the white kids are going to get really racist if you keep blaming them for everything. And didn't get through to them. It was wild. I think I saw a clip of that where, like, one of the people in the shop was just like, you did this, and Steven was like, I wasn't alive then, I didn't do anything. And the guy was like, well, your ancestors. And he's like, yeah, but you blamed me, I didn't do anything. And if you're going to keep using that rhetoric, you're going to be radicalizing more people. Kirsche, literally only white people think that way. Look at how juries work. Yeah, I'm aware. Every time I talk about that, I think of like that little line chart that shows how, like, each race feels about all the other races, and every other race marks their own race as, like, favorable, except for white people. The Trump administration has filed a brief in the case, siding with the white voters challenging the map and urging the Supreme Court to make it harder to win a Section 2 case. Since Trump's inauguration, the Justice Department has withdrawn from all its pending Section 2 cases and has not filed any new ones. Too often, Section 2 is deployed as a form of electoral race-based affirmative action to undo a state's constitutional pursuit of political ends. Davis, the former teacher who recalled growing up during segregation, expressed disbelief at the argument that the Voting Rights Act was no longer needed. The fact that they want to take that away, it's like we just keep fighting and fighting and fighting. When does it end? It ends when we have actual equality and we stop doing Marxist equity bullshit. But can we get there? I don't know how much faith I have anymore, man. I see all of the arguing, I see all the vitriol, I see all the violence, and I don't have much faith, man. It just makes me real sad.